Commander Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of the starship Sabyok and watched three impossible things happen at once. The alien ship in front of them changed from metal to pure light, then back to metal again. Another ship, made entirely of crystal, grew new sections just by thinking about them. The third ship seemed to bend space around itself, making stars look wavy behind it. "First contact going well, Commander," said Lieutenant Dong-ho Kim. His voice was calm, but Jinwoo could hear the tension underneath. Jinwoo smiled. "Better than expected. They want to show off." Dr. Subin Lee looked up from her instruments. Her eyes were bright with curiosity instead of fear. "The energy readings are incredible, but there are patterns here. Limits." "Limits?" asked Communications Officer Hyun-Soo Wang. "They just turned a battleship into light and back again." "Yes, but look at the data," Subin said. She pointed to her screen. "The Velthari can only work with energy. The Corvini only manipulate crystal matter. The Nethys only control dark matter. Each group has one trick." Jinwoo nodded slowly. This was why he brought Subin on the mission. She saw things others missed. The communication panel lit up. Three alien voices spoke at once, each using different technology to create the same message in perfect human language. "Welcome, young species. We are the rulers of this galaxy. We have watched your kind take its first baby steps into space." "How cute." Jinwoo stepped forward. "This is Commander Jinwoo Park representing humanity. We're honored to meet you." A laugh came through the speakers. It sounded like three different types of music playing at once. "Honored? You should be afraid. We could destroy your entire species with a thought." To prove their point, the Velthari ship fired a beam of pure energy at a nearby asteroid. The rock turned into gas in seconds. The Corvani ship pointed at another asteroid and turned it into a perfect crystal sculpture. The Nethys ship made a third asteroid simply disappear into a dark hole in space. "Very impressive," Jinwoo said. His crew looked at him like he was crazy for staying so calm. "We have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years," the voices continued. "We offer you a place in our great empire. You can serve us, mine our planets, build our ships. In return, we will protect you from the dangers of space." "That's very generous," Jinwoo replied. "May I ask what these dangers are?" Another laugh. This one not as friendly. "Oh, little human. There are things in the dark between galaxies that would eat your world for breakfast. Ancient horrors that we barely keep at bay. You need our protection." Dr. Subin Lee was taking notes on everything. She noticed something strange. When the aliens talked about these ancient horrors, their voices changed. They sounded scared. Lieutenant Dong-ho Kim was watching the three alien ships. He saw how they never got too close to each other, how they positioned themselves like they expected a fight. These three groups didn't really trust each other. "We appreciate the offer," Jinwoo said. "But we'll need time to discuss this with our people back on Earth." "Time?" The alien voices sounded surprised. "You need time to think about this gift we offer? Most species beg to serve us after seeing our power. We're a cautious people," Jinwoo explained. "We like to think things through." "Perhaps you don't understand," the voices said. They sounded annoyed now. "Let us show you again." This time, the display was even more dramatic. The Velthari ship became a small sun, burning bright enough to light up the entire area. The Corvini ship grew into a crystal palace the size of a moon. The Nethys ship opened holes in space-time itself, showing glimpses of other dimensions. Jinwoo's crew watched, in silence. But instead of fear, they showed something the aliens didn't expect. They looked interested, fascinated. Dr. Subin Lee was almost bouncing with excitement as she took measurements. "Incredible engineering," she said loud enough for the aliens to hear. "How do you maintain stability during the energy-to-matter transition? And that crystal growth pattern follows mathematical rules I've never seen before." The alien voices went quiet for a moment. They were not used to this reaction. "You're not afraid," one voice finally said. It sounded confused. "Should we be?" asked Jinwoo. "You're showing us amazing technology. We're scientists and explorers. This is exactly what we hope to find among the stars." Hyun-Soo Wang leaned over to Dong-Ho Kim. They expected us to run away screaming, he whispered, or fall to our knees. In worship, Dong-Ho whispered back. Look at how they positioned themselves. This was supposed to be a dominance display. Dr. Subin Lee raised her hand like a student in class. Excuse me, but I have some questions about your power sources. The energy signatures suggest you're drawing from different dimensional layers. Is that correct? The silence stretched longer this time. Finally, the voices spoke again, but they sounded less confident than before. These are not matters for lesser species to understand. Oh, we probably wouldn't understand the advanced parts, Subin agreed cheerfully. But the basic principles are fascinating. Are you limited to specific dimensional frequencies? That would explain the specialization patterns we're seeing. Jinwoo hid a smile. Subin was doing what she did best, asking innocent questions that weren't innocent at all. We think your offer deserves careful consideration, Jinwoo said formally. We'll need to send a full report back to Earth and discuss this with our leaders. I hope you understand. How long? The voices asked. 6 months should be enough time. 6 months. The aliens sounded shocked. Most species give us an answer in minutes. We're not most species, Jinwoo said simply. After the alien ships left, Jinwoo's crew gathered on the bridge. Everyone was excited and talking at once. Did you see how the energy beam worked? Those crystal formations were impossible. The space-time manipulation was beyond anything in our physics books. Jinwoo held up a hand for quiet. Subin, what did you find? They're powerful, but they're stuck, she said. Each group can only use one type of cosmic force. They can't cross over into each other's areas. That's why they need each other to rule the galaxy. And they're afraid of something, added Dong-Ho. Did you hear how they talked about the things in the dark between galaxies? Jinwoo nodded. He walked to the communication console and began typing a coded message to Earth. His fingers moved quickly across the keys. What are you sending? Asked Hyun-Soo. Jinwoo finished typing and looked at his crew. I'm recommending immediate deep space research into dimensional physics. These aren't gods walking among mortals. He paused and smiled. They're prisoners of their own power, and I think it's time someone showed them what freedom looks like. The message shot through space toward Earth, carrying with it the seeds of everything that would follow. Behind them, the 3 alien fleets moved away into the darkness, discussing the strange humans who looked at cosmic power and asked scientific questions instead of begging for mercy. None of them realized that humanity had just seen their greatest weakness. The aliens had forgotten how to grow. 6 months later, Admiral Nari Choi stood in the command center of the largest fleet humanity had ever built. Around her, hundreds of ships prepared for the longest journey in human history. They were going to the edge of everything. Final message. From Earth, Admiral, said her communications officer. The aliens are expecting our answer today. Nari smiled. They'll get one, just not the one they want. The answer came in the form of Commander Jinwoo Park's voice, broadcast to the 3 alien powers on all frequencies. After careful consideration, humanity respectfully declines your generous offer to serve your empire. Instead, we're going to establish our own colonies at the galactic edge. We hope this arrangement works for everyone. The alien response came back in minutes, 3 voices speaking as one, sounding relieved and maybe a little amused. How wise of you, little humans. The galactic edge is dangerous, but if you wish to exile yourselves to the dark places, we will not stop you. Just remember, when the ancient horrors come for you, don't expect us to save you. Dr. Subin Lee looked up from her research station. They sound happy about this. Of course they do, said Jinwoo. They think we're running away to die in some corner where we won't bother them anymore. The human fleet began its journey to the galactic edge. It took 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel to reach the boundary between the galaxy and the empty space beyond. Here the stars grew thin and the darkness between them stretched forever. Subin had spent every day of the journey studying the data they collected from the alien encounter. The patterns were becoming clearer. Each alien species was locked into using only one type of cosmic force. They couldn't break out of their limitations. It's like they learned to paint with only one color, she explained to the senior staff. Red, blue, or yellow. Powerful colors, but they can never make green or purple or orange. And we can? Asked Nari. I think so, but not in the way they do it. Subin pulled up a holographic display showing energy patterns. They control their forces. They dominate them. But what if that's the wrong approach entirely? Jinwoo studied the patterns. What are you thinking? What if the universe doesn't want to be controlled? What if it wants to be invited? The fleet reached the galactic edge and began setting up research stations. They chose a region where space seemed especially dark and empty. The perfect place for humanity to disappear forever, according to the aliens. But on the first night, Communications Officer Hyun-Soo Wang picked up something impossible. Admiral, you need to hear this, he said. His voice was shaking. The sound that came through the speakers was like music but not made by any instrument. It was like singing but not with any voice. It seemed to come from the empty space itself. Where is that coming from? Asked Nari. Hyun-Soo checked his instruments 3 times. Everywhere and nowhere the signal isn't coming through space. It's coming from under space, like there's something beneath reality itself. Dr. Subin Lee ran to her equipment. Her readings were going crazy. This is it, she whispered. This is what the aliens are afraid of. Over the next few days, the signals got stronger. They found patterns in the music that wasn't music, mathematical relationships that hurt to think about, geometric shapes that existed in more dimensions than human minds could process. It's trying to communicate, Subin said. She had dark circles under her eyes from staying awake for 3 days straight. But not in any way we understand communication. Jinwoo made a decision that would change everything. We need to try to make contact. Sir, said Lieutenant Dong-ho Kim, we don't know what this thing is. The aliens call it an ancient horror. The aliens call anything they can't control an ancient horror, Jinwoo replied. Maybe they just never learned how to say hello properly. The first contact attempt was a disaster. They sent a probe toward the source of the signals. The probe simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged. It just stopped existing. The second attempt was worse. They sent an unmanned ship. The ship came back, but it was wrong. The metal had been folded into impossible shapes. The computers were running programs that shouldn't exist. When they tried to study the ship, 3 researchers had to be sedated, because looking at it too long made them scream. Maybe the aliens were right, said Dong-ho. Maybe some things should be left alone. But Subin had a different idea. We're approaching this wrong. We're trying to study it like it's a thing. But what if it's not a thing at all? What do you mean? Asked Jinwoo. What if it's more like an invitation? The probe disappeared because we sent it like an intruder. The ship came back wrong because we approached it like conquerors. But what if we tried to approach it like guests? Nari frowned. That's incredibly dangerous, Subin. Everything about this is dangerous, but dangerous doesn't mean impossible. Subin worked for days on a new approach. Instead of sending machines to study the phenomenon, she designed a protocol for human contact. Not to control or analyze, but to communicate, to listen, to accept invitation. The theory is simple, she explained to the senior staff. Instead of trying to impose our reality on whatever this is, we let it show us its reality. We don't fight it. We don't try to understand it with our current physics. We just experience it. And if it kills whoever tries this? Asked Nari. Subin was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll know that's not the right approach either. Jinwoo stood up. I'll do it. Commander, no, said Dong-ho. We can't lose you. You won't lose me, Jinwoo said. Either this works or we find another way. But someone has to take the first step. They prepared for days. Subin designed a modified contact chamber that could monitor Jinwoo's vital signs while allowing him to interface with whatever existed in the space beneath reality. Hyun-Soo set up communication links. Dong-ho prepared emergency protocols. On the day of the attempt, Jin Woo stood in the contact chamber surrounded by instruments that hummed with quiet energy. Through the windows, he could see the endless dark of intergalactic space. "Remember," said Subin through the intercom, "don't try to control anything. Don't try to understand anything. Just listen." Jin Woo nodded. "Begin the sequence." The chamber filled with the strange music they had been hearing for weeks. But now it was louder, clearer. Jin Woo closed his eyes and tried to let go of everything he thought he knew about reality. The music became color. The color became sensation. The sensation became something that had no name in any human language. Jin Woo felt himself falling through layers of existence he never knew were there. Past matter, past energy, past time itself, down into the creative chaos that existed before the universe learned how to make sense. And in that chaos, something vast and ancient and playful noticed him. Not with eyes or thoughts, but with a kind of cosmic curiosity that made Jin Woo feel like a child being gently examined by a loving parent. The presence didn't speak. It showed. It shared. It invited Jin Woo to see what reality looked like when you stopped trying to control it and started trying to dance with it. For 72 hours, the human fleet heard nothing from their commander. His vital signs showed he was alive, but his brainwaves looked like no pattern any human had ever seen. Then, on the third day, reality began to bend around their research stations. Space twisted into beautiful spirals. Time flowed backward and forward at the same time. Matter and energy danced together like old friends. The stars themselves seemed to sing, and in the middle of it all, Commander Jin Woo Park opened his eyes and smiled. "It's not power," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that made everyone who heard it feel like they were remembering something important they had forgotten. "It's an invitation to remember what we really are." Behind him, the empty space between galaxies rippled like water, and something infinitely vast and patient waited to teach humanity how to swim in the ocean of pure possibility. Commander Jin Woo Park was different when he returned from the abyss, not broken or changed in a frightening way. He was more like himself than he had ever been before. When he walked, reality seemed to smile around him. When he spoke, people felt like they were hearing the most important truth they had ever been told. Dr. Subin Lee spent 3 days running every test she could think of on Jin Woo. His body was exactly the same as before. His mind was exactly the same as before. But something fundamental about his relationship with the universe had shifted. "How do you feel?" she asked him during one of their sessions. Jin Woo thought about it carefully. "Like I just learned that the ocean has been asking me to swim my whole life and I never noticed because I was too busy trying to build boats." "Can you explain what happened in there?" "The abyss isn't a place," Jin Woo said. "It's not a thing or a force. It's more like the space between thoughts, the pause between heartbeats, the possibility that exists before reality decides what it wants to be." Subin made notes, but she knew her instruments couldn't measure what Jin Woo was describing. "And it's conscious?" "Not conscious like we are. More like aware. Playful. It's been waiting for someone to notice it. The aliens found it long ago, but they tried to control it. That's why they got trapped with only one type of power each." "What do you mean?" Jin Woo stood up and walked to the window overlooking the research station. As he moved, the lights in the room seemed to dance. "The Velthari once touched the abyss, but they got scared of its infinite nature, so they limited themselves to just energy manipulation. Safer that way. The Corvani did the same thing with matter, the Nethys with dark matter. So they chose to be limited? They chose to be safe, but safe meant giving up the ability to grow." Jin Woo turned back to Subin. "The abyss doesn't want to be controlled, it wants to be explored, played with. It wants to create new possibilities." Subin felt excitement building in her chest. "Can you teach others?" "I think so. But it has to be done carefully. The mind has to be ready." Over the next weeks, Jin Woo worked with Subin to develop what they called the Abyss Interface Protocol. It wasn't technology in the usual sense, it was more like a way of thinking. A method for opening the mind to possibilities that normal physics said were impossible. Lieutenant Dong-ho Kim was the first volunteer. He sat in the modified contact chamber while Jinwoo guided him through the process. "Don't try to understand what you're experiencing," Jinwoo said through the intercom. "Just let it flow through you, like listening to music you've never heard before." Dong-ho closed his eyes and let himself fall into the strange music that came from beneath reality. At first it was terrifying. His mind tried to make sense of what he was experiencing and failed completely, but then he remembered Jinwoo's words and stopped trying to understand. The music became sensation. The sensation became awareness. And in that awareness, Dong-ho found something amazing. He could see the paths that probability wanted to take, the threads of cause and effect that wove through reality like rivers of light. And if he was very gentle, very careful, he could nudge those threads in new directions. When Dong-ho opened his eyes, he looked at Subin's coffee cup and smiled. Without touching it, the cup slid across the table to her hand, arriving just as she reached for it. "Probability adjustment," he said, grinning. "Reality wanted the cup to be where you needed it." Hyun-Soo Wang was next. His contact with the abyss gave him something different but equally amazing. He could perceive communication channels that existed between different versions of reality. Suddenly, he was picking up radio signals from parallel versions of their galaxy, messages from other humanities that had made different choices. "There's a version of us where we never left Earth," he reported excitedly, "and another where we became explorers 1,000 years ago, and one where we're made of living music instead of matter." One by one, more humans interfaced with the abyss. Each person gained something different, something that matched their personality and deepest interests. Engineers learned to convince matter to hold impossible shapes. Scientists discovered they could ask questions directly to the universe and get answers. Artists found they could paint with light itself. But Subin made the most important discovery of all. She was studying the energy patterns created by the abyss-touched humans when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The patterns matched data she had collected about the 3 alien races, but with crucial differences. "Jinwoo," she called urgently, "I need you to see this." She showed him the comparison on her holographic display. "Look at these energy signatures. The Velthari, Corvani, and Nethys. Their power patterns match abyss contact, but only partially." Jinwoo studied the data carefully. His face grew serious. "They're not advanced alien civilizations at all. No, they're the survivors, the remnants of species that once touched the abyss but couldn't handle its infinite nature. They limited themselves to single aspects of reality as a survival mechanism. The implications hit them both at the same time. The 3 great powers of the galaxy weren't evolved beings. They were the traumatized descendants of races that had once been capable of so much more. "We have to tell the others," said Jinwoo. But before they could call a meeting, alarms began sounding throughout the research station. Admiral Nari Choi's voice came over the intercom. "All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have visitors." In the command center, the main screen showed 3 fleets approaching their position. Velthari energy ships, Corvani crystal vessels, and Nethys dark matter cruisers. All of them moving in attack formation. "They know something has changed," said Nari. "Our colonies have been displaying impossible architectures. Our ships are moving through space in ways that shouldn't work. They're scared." Jinwoo looked at the approaching fleets and felt something he had never expected to feel toward the aliens. Sadness. "They're not coming here as conquerors," he said quietly. "They're coming here as prisoners who just realized someone found the key to their cell." "What do you mean?" asked Nari. "They've been trapped in their limited power sets for so long they've forgotten what they used to be. Seeing us access the abyss reminds them of what they lost, and that's the most terrifying thing they could imagine." The first transmission came from the lead Velthari ship. The voice was the same as before, but now it carried undertones of panic. "Humans, you will cease your dangerous experiments immediately. You are dealing with forces that could destroy the galaxy." Jinwoo stepped forward to reply, but before he could speak, something extraordinary happened. He simply appeared on the bridge of the Velthari ship, standing in front of their commander like he had always been there. The aliens recoiled in shock. Their sensors couldn't detect how he had arrived. He hadn't used any technology they recognized. "Hello," Jinwoo said, gently, "we need to talk." The Velthari commander was a being of pure energy contained in a roughly humanoid shape. It flickered with power that could level mountains. But when it looked at Jinwoo, Subin saw something unexpected in its energy patterns. Fear, but not fear of death or conquest, fear of hope. "You don't understand what you're doing," the commander said. "The forces you're playing with destroyed our ancestors. They could destroy everything." Jinwoo smiled sadly. "I understand perfectly. Your ancestors touched the abyss, and it was so vast, so infinite, that they got scared and limited themselves to tiny fragments of what they could have become. They chose safety over growth. And you think you can succeed where they failed?" "No," said Jinwoo. "I think they never failed at all. They just got afraid of succeeding." He looked directly at the Velthari commander, and for a moment the being's energy patterns showed something that hadn't been seen in their species for thousands of years. "Wonder. We can teach you to remember what you used to be," Jinwoo said, quietly. "If you want to remember." The transmission ended abruptly. The three alien fleets hung in space, commanders probably arguing with each other about what to do next. Subin looked at Jinwoo. "Do you think they'll accept?" Jinwoo gazed out at the ships that represented the remnants of three great civilizations that had forgotten how to dream. Some will, some won't. But for the first time in thousands of years, they have a choice that isn't about power or control or fear. He smiled. They have a choice about whether to remember how to grow. The three alien fleets waited in space for 2 days before making their decision. Admiral Nari Choi watched from her command center as the ships of the Velthari, Corvani, and Nethys moved into a formation she had never seen before. Not an attack pattern. A unity formation. For the first time in thousands of years, the three great powers of the galaxy were working together, against humanity. The ultimatum came at dawn, ship time. Three voices speaking as one, but now they carried the weight of genuine threat instead of casual dominance. Humans. You have 72 hours to surrender all research materials related to your deep space experiments. You will submit to technological inspection and permanent containment on the galactic rim. Any refusal will result in your complete destruction. Dr. Subin Lee looked up from her instruments. Energy readings are off the charts. They're not bluffing. Commander, Jinwoo Park stood quietly in the center of the command room. Around him, reality seemed calmer than it should be, given the circumstances. "They're terrified," he said. "We offered to help them remember what they used to be, and they've decided. They'd rather destroy us than face that possibility. Can we fight them?" asked Lieutenant Dong Ho Kim. Jinwoo considered this. "We could, but fighting isn't the point." "Then what is the point?" asked Nari. "Teaching them that they don't have to be afraid anymore." The 72 hours passed like a countdown to the end of the world. The human research stations prepared for war, but it was unlike any preparation they had ever made. Instead of weapons and shields, the abyss-touched humans spent their time in meditation, opening their minds wider to the infinite possibilities that lay beneath reality. When the deadline arrived, the alien response was immediate and overwhelming. The Velthari unleashed energy bombardments that could turn entire planets into vapor. Beams of concentrated starlight lanced toward the human stations, with enough power to destroy solar systems. The Corvani crystallized space itself around the human ships, creating reality traps that should have locked them in permanent stasis. Geometric patterns spread through three-dimensional space like living equations, each one designed to freeze matter and energy in place forever. The Nethys tore holes in the fabric of space-time, creating dimensional rifts that were meant to cast the human colonies into exile in parallel universes, where they could never return. Any normal civilization would have been wiped out in the first few seconds of the attack, but the humans didn't fight back in any way the aliens could understand. When the energy bombardments reached the research stations, they simply changed. The destructive beams became warm light that powered the human cities. Children played in streams of converted starfire. Gardens bloomed in the glow of what should have been annihilation. The Corvini reality traps became something else entirely. The crystalline patterns that were meant to lock the humans in stasis transformed into beautiful geometric gardens where families had picnics. The math that was supposed to freeze everything in place became living architecture that grew and changed according to the needs of its inhabitants. The dimensional rifts opened by the Nethys didn't exile the humans at all. Instead, human explorers used them as doorways, stepping through to visit parallel galaxies and returning with reports of infinite wonders. In the command centers of the three alien fleets, absolute silence fell. "Report," demanded the Velthari. "Commander, the humans are unharmed," came the stunned reply from the weapons officer. "Our most powerful energy attacks are lighting their cities. They're using our weapons as power sources." The Corvani commander had a similar report. "They've turned our reality traps into recreational facilities. Their children are playing games inside crystallized space-time." The Nethys commander's report was the most disturbing of all. "They're using our dimensional weapons as transportation. They're visiting other versions of the galaxy and coming back to tell their friends about it." The three commanders opened a joint communication channel. For the first time in thousands of years, they spoke not as rivals, but as allies facing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about power. "What are they?" whispered the Velthari commander. "I don't know," replied the Corvani commander. "But they're not fighting us, they're changing us." That was when Dr. Subin Lee did something that would be remembered forever in galactic history. She accessed abyss space directly, bypassing all normal communication channels, and appeared simultaneously on the bridge of all three alien command ships, not as a hologram or a transmission. She was physically present in three places at once, standing calmly in front of three beings who had just tried to destroy her species. "Hello," she said to each commander. "We need to have a conversation." The aliens recoiled, but they couldn't deny what they were seeing. Subin was there, real and solid, speaking to them with the kind of gentle authority that comes from understanding rather than dominance. "You're trying to destroy us because we offered to help you remember what you used to be," she said. "But you already know we can't be destroyed by the methods you're using. So maybe it's time to try something else." The Velthari commander flickered with agitation. "You're dealing with forces that destroyed our ancestors. You don't understand the danger." "Your ancestors weren't destroyed," Subin replied patiently. "They chose to become you. They touched the abyss and found it so vast, so full of infinite possibility, that they got scared and limited themselves to just one aspect of reality each. Energy for your people. Matter for the Corvani. Dark matter for the Nethys. Lies," said the Corvani commander. But its crystalline structure was resonating in patterns that suggested uncertainty. "Not lies. Just a truth you've forgotten." Subin gestured, and suddenly the command bridges of all three ships were filled with images from the abyss. Not the chaotic, terrifying visions the aliens expected, but something else. Memories. The commanders saw their ancestors as they truly were, beings of incredible potential who could work with all aspects of reality, who could grow and change and explore infinite possibilities, who chose to limit themselves not because they had to, but because they were afraid of how much they might become. "We can teach you to remember," Subin said. "Not to go back to what you were, but to become what you could have been if fear hadn't stopped your growth." The silence that followed lasted for hours. Three entire fleets hung motionless in space while their leaders struggled with the most difficult decision any of them had ever faced. Finally, it was the Nethys commander who spoke first. As a hive mind, they had been debating the question among billions of individuals simultaneously. What would it cost us? "The comfortable certainty that your limitations are the same as your identity," Subin answered honestly. "You would have to risk becoming more than you are now." "And if we refuse?" Subin smiled sadly. "Then you go back to ruling your piece of the galaxy, and we go back to exploring the edges of reality. Nothing changes. You stay safe in your limitations, and we continue growing beyond them." The Corvani commander's crystal structure shifted into new configurations as it processed this. You won't force us? Growth can't be forced, it can only be invited. More silence. Then, impossibly, the Velthari commander asked a question that hadn't been heard from their species in millennia. How do we begin? Subin's smile became genuine. The same way everyone begins, with curiosity instead of fear. She gestured again, and the abyss opened just a tiny bit, just enough for the three commanders to glimpse what lay beyond their self-imposed limitations. Not chaos or destruction, but infinite creative potential waiting to be explored. For the first time in thousands of years, the descendants of three great civilizations remembered what it felt like to wonder, instead of worry. One by one, volunteers from each fleet began to come forward. Not many at first. Fear was a powerful habit, but enough to begin the process of remembering what they had chosen to forget. The galaxy was about to discover what it meant to grow again. The first alien to volunteer was a young Velthari named Kael Sun. She was barely old enough to maintain her energy form, which made her the perfect candidate. The older members of her species had spent too many centuries locked into their limited way of thinking. Lieutenant Dong-Ho Kim worked with her in the modified contact chamber they had built for cross-species abyss interface. Through the observation windows, Dr. Subin Lee watched energy patterns she had never seen before dance through the air. Don't try to control the energy, Dong-Ho said gently. Let it dance with you instead. Kael-sun had spent her entire life learning to dominate energy, to bend it to her will. The idea of partnering with it was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. When she finally let go of control and invited the abyss to show her what energy really wanted to be, the results were beautiful beyond description. Light began to sing. Heat became emotion. Electricity turned into living poetry that wrote itself across the walls of the chamber. For the first time in thousands of years, a Velthari was working with all aspects of reality instead of just energy. When Kael-sun opened her eyes, tears of pure light rolled down her face. She looked at the humans around her and spoke in a voice that carried harmonies from dimensions they couldn't name. We forgot, she whispered. We forgot how to play. The news of Kael-sun's transformation spread through the Velthari fleet like wildfire. Some were horrified. Many were afraid, but others remembered stories their grandparents had told about the old days, before the Great Limitation, when their people could do impossible things just for the joy of creating beauty. More volunteers came forward. The Corvani were harder to work with. Their crystalline thought patterns had been rigid for so long that flexibility was almost painful for them. But Communications Officer Hyun-Soo Wang found a way to help them. Think of it like growing, he told a volunteer named Silandra. Crystals grow, right? They add new layers, new facets. This is just growing in directions you haven't tried before. Silandra was a master architect who had spent centuries building impossible structures from pure thought crystal. When she interfaced with the abyss, her crystalline body began to sing. Not with sound, but with mathematical harmonies that reshaped local space-time. Her crystal form started growing in impossible directions. New facets appeared that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. Her thoughts became living architecture that could house ideas themselves. When she spoke, her words took shape as geometric patterns that made everyone who saw them understand complex concepts without needing explanations. It's not about building structures, she said, her voice creating visible patterns in the air. It's about becoming structure, being the bridge between what is and what could be. The Nethys proved to be the most challenging. As a hive mind, they had to make decisions together. When one of them touched the abyss, they all felt it. The collective experience was overwhelming at first, but Commander Jin-Woo Park worked with them patiently. You don't all have to change at once, he explained to the swirling dark matter entity that served as their spokesperson. Let one small part of your collective try it first. The rest of you can observe and decide if you want to follow. The Nethys designated a small portion of their hive mind to interface with the abyss. The experience was unlike anything they had ever shared. Instead of the controlled manipulation of dark matter they were used to, They found themselves swimming in the creative chaos that gave birth to new forms of matter, new types of energy, new ways of existing that they had never imagined. When that small portion of their collective consciousness returned from the abyss, it brought gifts: the ability to create matter from pure thought, the power to bridge different realities, the knowledge of how to grow the hive mind in ways that made each individual stronger, rather than just adding to the collective. "We are no longer just Nethys," the spokesperson said, its dark matter form now shot through with streams of light. "We are Nethys becoming something new, something more." Not all of the aliens chose transformation. Many preferred the safety of their limitations. Admiral Nari Choi made sure they understood this choice would be respected. "Growth has to be voluntary," she announced to the combined fleets. "Anyone who chooses to remain as they are will be honored and protected. This isn't about replacing what you are. It's about adding to what you could become." The transformed aliens became bridges between their old civilizations and the new possibilities. They helped their unchanged relatives understand that the humans weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were teachers who had learned how to swim in the ocean of infinite potential. As more aliens underwent transformation, the galaxy itself began to change. Ancient species that had been hiding in the deep places between stars started returning. They had been waiting for the rigid hierarchy of the three powers to end, for the cosmos to remember how to grow again. New forms of life emerged from the creative chaos of abyss-touched reality. Beings made of living music. Creatures that existed as pure mathematics, entities that swam through dimensions like fish through water. The galaxy became a place of infinite diversity, where consciousness could take any form it could imagine. Dr. Subin Lee established the Academy of Deep Perspective on a space station that existed partially in normal reality and partially in abyss space. Here, beings from across the galaxy came to learn how to touch the infinite while maintaining their essential nature. The Academy's motto, carved in letters that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, read simply, "Growth through partnership, wonder through courage." Jin Woo served as the first director of Infinite Studies, teaching students how to approach the abyss with curiosity instead of fear. His classes were attended by transformed Velthari, who painted with living light, evolved Korvani, whose crystal bodies housed entire ecosystems, and expanded Nethys, who had learned to exist as individuals while remaining part of their greater collective. But the most important discovery came when they realized the transformation wasn't just changing individuals, it was changing the fundamental nature of reality itself. The rigid laws of physics that had governed the galaxy for billions of years were becoming more flexible. Space and time learned to dance. Matter and energy discovered they could be friends, instead of just different states of the same thing. Consciousness found that it could wear infinite forms without losing its essential nature. "We're not just teaching people to use cosmic power differently," Subin explained to Jinwoo as they watched a group of mixed-species students learn to create pocket universes for their art projects. "We're teaching the universe itself to remember how to play." The story reached its culmination when Admiral Nari Choi received a message that changed everything. It came not from the galaxy they knew, but from the deep spaces between realities. Other galaxies, other universes, other forms of existence entirely had noticed what was happening. "The invitation is spreading," the message said in harmonies that bypassed language entirely. "What began with one species learning to partner with the abyss is becoming a cosmic renaissance. Reality itself is waking up to new possibilities." Nari stood in the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at a galaxy that was no longer the same place humanity had first encountered years ago. Stars danced in spirals that wrote poetry across space. Planets grew gardens that existed in multiple dimensions. Ships traveled not just through space but through the spaces between possibilities. The 3 great powers still existed, but they were no longer the only powers. The galaxy had become a community of infinite diversity, where any form of consciousness could find its place and grow beyond what it had ever imagined possible. Jinwoo joined her at the observation window. Behind them, a mixed crew of humans, transformed aliens, and entirely new forms of life prepared for their next mission. They weren't going to explore just one galaxy anymore. They were going to serve as ambassadors to the infinite communities that existed in the deep spaces between realities. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Nari asked. Jinwoo smiled as he watched a group of children, some human, some Velthari, some made of living crystal, some existing as pure thought, play a game that involved creating temporary universes and seeing who could make the most beautiful one. "We didn't conquer the galaxy through superior firepower," he said. "We didn't dominate it through advanced technology. We saved it by remembering the most important thing any conscious being can know, which is that growth never ends, that wonder is more powerful than fear, and that the universe is always ready to become more than it was if we're brave enough to invite it to dance." As if in response to his words, reality itself shimmered around them, and for just a moment they could see the infinite web of possibilities that connected every conscious being in existence. Past and future, matter and energy, thought and dream, all of it part of one great cosmic story that was always beginning, never ending, eternally growing into something more beautiful than anyone could imagine. Humanity hadn't conquered the cosmos. They had taught it how to remember what it meant to dream. And in the deep spaces between realities, ancient things that had been sleeping for eons began to stir, drawn by the music of a universe that was learning how to sing again.